Have you ever felt like your life was full, but your heart was heavy? You've lived through decades of love, loss, hard work, and devotion. You've given endlessly to family, to friends, to duty, but now, in this quieter season of life, there's a whisper in your soul asking, what do I still need to carry, and what can I finally let go of? After age 70, the journey is no longer about proving, achieving, or accumulating. It becomes about softening, healing, and coming home to yourself. But sometimes, peace doesn't come from adding more. It comes from subtracting, from releasing the invisible burdens you've carried for years. Not things you can see, but expectations, resentments, guilt, roles, regrets, old identities. In this video, we're going to explore 8 things that many of us over 70 need to release, not because we failed, but because we've outgrown them. Letting go isn't a loss. Letting go is freedom. You may discover that what's been holding you back isn't your age, it's what you've been holding on to. So I invite you, if you've ever felt weighed down by things you can't name, comment 1 below. If this journey is still new to you, comment 0. I read every message. And if this message touches your heart, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so we can walk this path of reflection and renewal together. Because one of these 8 things may be something you've carried silently for decades, and today might be the day you finally set it down. Number 1, let go of the need for everyone's approval. When you stop seeking approval, you start remembering who you really are. Anonymous. I want to begin with something quietly exhausting. It's not heavy like a suitcase. It's not loud like an argument. It's subtle, but it follows us everywhere. I'm talking about the quiet urge to be liked. Even at 70, 75, or 80, many of us still carry this deep, unspoken desire. Do they approve of me? Did I say the right thing? Do they think I'm too much or not enough? We might assume that this kind of thinking fades with age, but for many, it doesn't. The truth is, a lifetime of people-pleasing becomes a habit that's hard to break, especially for those of us who grew up in times where being agreeable, quiet, or self-sacrificing was considered a virtue. We learned early that love sometimes came with conditions. Be nice, be quiet, don't rock the boat. And even now, when we've earned every wrinkle, every gray hair, every hard-earned lesson, many of us still hesitate to speak our truth. Why? Because somewhere deep inside, we still want approval. We want to be accepted. We still crave validation from people who may never give it. But what if I told you that chasing approval is a thief? It doesn't just take your peace, it steals your time. It keeps you second-guessing your words, your choices, your boundaries. And worst of all, it disconnects you from your authentic self, the person you've spent a lifetime becoming. After 70, we are no longer here to impress. We are here to express ourselves. We are here to be true, to be kind, not to be controlled by someone else's opinion. Peace doesn't require permission, and real connection doesn't need performance. Letting go of the need for approval doesn't mean we become cold or distant. It means we finally feel free to say, I am enough. Even if you don't clap for me, I can speak gently, but I no longer have to stay silent. I can disagree and still be kind. The truth is, the people who matter don't need you to shrink, and the people who need you to shrink don't matter. Let this be the season of unapologetic softness, a time where your voice matters not because it's perfect, but because it's real. As we move forward, I invite you to reflect. Have you spent too many years waiting for someone else's permission to feel good about yourself? Because when you finally let go of needing to be liked by everyone, you open the door to be loved deeply by those who truly see you. Let's take a deep breath and walk together to the next thing worth letting go. Number 2, let go of regrets you can't rewrite. The past cannot be changed, but the story you tell yourself about it can. Oprah Winfrey. Let's talk about regret, the kind that lingers quietly in the background of your heart. Everyone has a few. Some carry many. Maybe you wish you had said something, or hadn't. Maybe you wonder if you worked too much, or too little. Maybe you carry guilt over a broken relationship, a missed goodbye, or a chance you didn't take. Regret can be a haunting companion, and the older we grow, the more vivid those memories seem to become. It's as if time, instead of fading the past, sharpens it. But here's what we often forget. Regret isn't the truth. It's just one version of a story, one angle, seen through the lens of pain. At 70 or 80, we finally have the perspective that youth lacks. We can now look back not only at what we did, but at who we were when we did it. We weren't perfect. We were trying to survive, trying to love in the only way we knew, trying to protect our family with the tools we had at the time. When you look at your life through this gentler lens, something beautiful happens. You begin to forgive yourself. Because healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means no longer punishing yourself for the things you couldn't have known back then. It means recognizing that regret is a visitor, not a tenant. It can knock, but it doesn't get to move in. If you've made peace with some of your past, bless you. If you're still struggling, know that you are not alone. There are millions of us carrying quiet stories, unfinished chapters, and old questions that may never be answered. But the most important question now isn't, what if I had done it differently? It's how can I use that pain to grow into someone more compassionate today? Because that's what regret is best used for, not to chain you down, but to wake you up, to soften your heart, to help you sit beside someone else's pain and say, me too. To become wiser, gentler, and more human. You are not the worst thing you've done. You are the whole of everything you've learned. And your story doesn't end in regret, it continues in grace. Before we move to the next chapter, take a breath and ask, what regret do I carry that I cannot change? Because maybe, just maybe, today is the day you stop fighting the past and start holding your present with tenderness. Number 3, let go of guilt that was never yours to carry. You cannot heal if you keep blaming yourself for wounds you didn't cause. Unknown. There's a quiet kind of guilt many elders carry. It doesn't always come from something you did wrong. Sometimes it's the guilt of not doing enough or not knowing better. Sometimes it's feeling responsible for someone else's pain, especially our children. I've spoken to many parents in their 70s and 80s who say, I must have failed somewhere. My son doesn't call. My daughter doesn't visit. What did I do wrong? But here's a truth many of us need to hear, gently and clearly. You are not responsible for another person's life choices once they become an adult. You are not responsible for their silence, their anger, their unhappiness, especially if you did your best with what you had. Yes, all of us made mistakes, but parenting didn't come with a manual. Most of us were simply doing the best we could in the moment with limited resources, limited emotional tools, and often no one to teach us how. And now, decades later, we sometimes carry guilt like a shadow. We blame ourselves for our children's distance. We hold ourselves accountable for their decisions, their sorrows, their struggles. But guilt that isn't examined becomes a chain around your spirit. It doesn't heal the relationship, it just hardens the pain. What if instead of guilt, you replaced it with grace? What if you could say to yourself, I may not have been perfect, but I was present. I made mistakes, but I loved deeply. I did not always know the right way, but I never stopped trying. That dear friend is what matters most. And for the guilt that is yours, for the things you truly regret, you still have the power to make peace. Not always by fixing the past, but by speaking with honesty in the present, a letter, a phone call, a quiet moment of truth. Even if it's not received, it still frees your heart. Guilt that isn't yours to carry must be gently laid down. It belongs to time now, not to you. Before we move on, I invite you to ask, am I still blaming myself for something I had no control over? Because peace doesn't come from caring more. It comes from learning what is and isn't yours to hold. Let's breathe and let go. Number 4, let go of the fear of being alone. Alone is not the same as lonely. Alone is a choice. Lonely is a feeling. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. Sylvia Plath. There's a moment that often arrives quietly in later life. The house becomes quieter. The phone rings less often. The calendar, once packed with obligations, suddenly has open spaces. And into that space comes fear. Not loud, not dramatic, but a soft, aching question. Am I becoming invisible after a lifetime of caring for others? Many older adults find themselves alone more than ever. Children grow up, friends pass away, neighbors move, and slowly, we are left with more time and less company. For some, this solitude is welcome. For others, it feels like punishment. But either way, the fear of being alone is very real and very common. But here's a quiet truth that might surprise you. Being alone is not the same as being lonely, and being surrounded by people doesn't always mean you feel connected. Loneliness is not cured by noise. It's cured by presence, especially your own. What if, instead of running from solitude, we could begin to sit with it, to treat it not as an enemy, but as a doorway to rediscovering ourselves? Because in silence, something profound can happen. We start hearing our own thoughts again. We start reconnecting with the person we used to be before the titles, the roles, the expectations. Being alone can be a return, not a loss. It can be a homecoming to the self. I know that sounds romantic, but the truth is, learning to enjoy your own company is one of the greatest gifts of aging. Not because you don't need others, but because you finally realize that you are enough on your own. That doesn't mean we don't miss people. It doesn't erase grief, but it transforms solitude into something sacred, not scary. So ask yourself, do I fear being alone? Or do I fear what I might feel when I'm finally still? Because if we can sit with our stillness, not distract, not numb, but truly sit, we may discover that the silence we feared was actually peace, waiting patiently. Let's carry this quiet courage with us as we step into the next truth worth releasing. Number 5, let go of the roles you no longer have to play. There's a strange kind of exhaustion that comes not from age but from pretending. For decades, many of us have carried roles like armor. The strong one, the caretaker, the peacemaker, the one who never complains, who always shows up, who always holds the family together. But what happens when you've spent a lifetime holding everyone else, and suddenly, you realize no one's holding you? This is the quiet heartbreak of aging that not many people talk about. The truth is that sometimes the strongest people are the loneliest because everyone assumes they don't need help. But here's the gift that age can offer: the permission to finally put down the masks, to no longer have to be the responsible one, the wise one, or the one who always knows what to do. You've done your part. You've shown up again and again. You've loved hard. You've held people through storms. Now, it's okay to just be you. Not the role, not the title, not the fixer. Just you with your softness, your tiredness, your laughter, your truth. Because aging, when embraced, is an invitation to return to authenticity. It's a chance to say, I no longer need to perform to be loved. I no longer need to fix everyone to be worthy. I no longer need to hide my own needs to keep the peace. Letting go of roles doesn't mean abandoning your loved ones. It means finally making space for your own heart to breathe. It means showing up not because it's your job, but because it brings you joy. It means helping when it feels right, not out of guilt or fear. And it means allowing others, yes, even grown children, to carry their own emotional weight. Not everything is yours to hold now. So take a moment and ask, what roles am I still performing, even though no one asked me to? Because peace is often found not in doing more, but in being more honest about what you no longer need to do. You have nothing left to prove. Now is the time to live with softness, truth, and finally, rest. Let's take this freedom and walk with it into what comes next. Number 6, let go of what no longer nourishes your soul. There's a powerful question that becomes more relevant with every passing year. Does this still nourish me? At 30, we accumulate. At 50, we manage. But at 70, we must begin the sacred work of editing. Not just the things in our homes, but the things in our hearts. Many of us hold on to routines, relationships, and responsibilities that once served us, but no longer do. And sometimes the hardest part isn't letting go of the painful things, it's letting go of the familiar ones. That old friendship you keep out of habit, even though it always leaves you feeling drained. That family obligation you fulfill out of duty, not love. That belief you were raised with that tells you rest is laziness, or that joy must be earned through struggle. So much of what we keep in our lives is there because it once made sense. But just because it made sense then doesn't mean it serves you now. At this stage of life, your peace is precious. Your joy is sacred. Your energy is no longer endless. It is to be protected, cherished, and directed toward what truly matters. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning everything. It means consciously asking, does this relationship uplift me? Does this habit bring me closer to who I want to be? Does this belief make my soul feel lighter or smaller? One woman I spoke with, 76 years old, told me that every week she used to meet up with a group of women she'd known for 40 years. But over time, their conversations became negative, filled with complaints, gossip, and criticism. Each time she left those meetings, she felt worse than before. And one day she asked herself, why am I still doing this? The only answer she could find was, because I always have. So she stopped going, and in the silence that followed, something beautiful happened. She didn't feel lonely. She felt free. She took that time to journal, take walks, call a grandchild, and read a book that inspired her. And she said, I didn't know how much noise I had allowed into my life until I heard the quiet again. We all have those noises. They might be people, routines, even expectations we place on ourselves. But if they no longer nourish your soul, they are not kind. They are clutter. You are not selfish for saying no to what empties you. You are wise. You are protecting the most sacred thing you have left, your inner peace. So here's a gentle invitation. Look at the menu of your life, the relationships, the daily rhythms, the thoughts you wake up with, and ask what feeds me and what just fills the space. Because at this age, we deserve more than just filling space. We deserve meaning. We deserve lightness. We deserve to wake up and not feel like life is something we endure, but something we still get to enjoy. It is not too late to choose joy. It is not too late to say, this no longer fits who I am. It is not too late to say, I want my life to feel like mine again. So pause for a moment, breathe, and gently ask, what am I still keeping in my life that no longer feeds me? Letting go of those things isn't giving up. It's making space for peace, for wonder, for the next beautiful chapter still waiting to unfold. Let's clear that space together. Number 7, let go of anger. That has turned into silence. Some hurt don't shout. They don't slam doors or scream across rooms. They simply go quiet, and they stay there between heartbeats, in the pauses of conversations, in the spaces where connections used to live. This is the kind of anger that isn't loud. It's the kind that simmers, the kind that used to ache, and now just settles into silence. For many people over 70, this kind of anger is deeply familiar. It comes from years, maybe decades, of holding on to words we never said, apologies never received, moments we swallowed to keep the peace, relationships that fractured, and instead of healing, were simply never spoken of again. This quiet kind of pain is often disguised. We call it distance. We call it we just drifted apart. We say we don't talk much anymore, as if it's casual. But often beneath that distance is a storm of emotion that was never allowed to pass. The problem with holding on to that kind of silence is that it doesn't heal. It hardens. And the longer we keep it in, the more it turns into something else: bitterness, resentment, disconnection. And worst of all, it begins to rewrite the story we tell ourselves about life, about people, about love. But here's the good news, maybe even the miracle. It's never too late to speak. It's never too late to acknowledge the wound, even if the other person is no longer in your life. Sometimes healing doesn't require a conversation with them. It requires an honest conversation with yourself. It means finally saying the words you never got to say. You hurt me. I needed more from you. I missed you. I'm still angry. I forgive you. Or even, I forgive myself. Letting go of that silent anger is not about letting the other person off the hook. It's about unhooking yourself from the story that's kept you locked in place for too long. I know it's not easy, especially when the pain runs deep. When the person who hurt you was someone close. When the wound was quiet but constant. But the truth is, you deserve peace more than you deserve to be right. You deserve a heart that is free to feel other things like softness, like joy, like calm. And maybe the reason peace hasn't arrived yet is because that space inside you is still filled with a story you never got to finish. So here's what I invite you to do quietly, privately, in your own time. Write the letter you never sent. Say the words out loud in an empty room. Tell the truth to the mirror, to a journal, to your God. Not because it changes the past, but because it sets you free. Before we move on, ask yourself gently, what silence am I still holding? That might be rooted in an unspoken wound, because when we clear that space, when we give voice to the ache, we make room again. Room for love to return, room for trust to grow, room for the present to feel less heavy. It starts with one simple, profound decision to stop letting silence speak for you. Let's breathe, let's forgive, and let's walk forward lighter than before. Number 8, let go of who you used to be. There comes a moment often quietly when you look in the mirror and realize the person staring back at you is not the same one you used to be. The face has changed, the body has softened, the energy moves slower, and something inside whispers, where did that other version of me go? For many people over 70, this is one of the most painful silent griefs, not losing someone else, but slowly watching yourself change and not knowing who you are anymore. You might remember the days when you were needed constantly, when your calendar was full, when you had roles that defined you: mother, father, provider, teacher, caregiver. And now the days feel quieter. The roles have faded. And that sense of purpose sometimes, it feels like it faded too. So what do we do with this loss of identity first? We name it. Because grief isn't only about death, it's also about change. And one of the hardest changes is grieving the person you used to be. But here's the truth we often forget. You are still becoming. You didn't stop growing just because your hair turned silver. You didn't stop evolving just because the world stopped calling your name every 5 minutes. The soul doesn't retire. It deepens. Who you used to be was beautiful, strong, essential, but so is who you are now. Not despite the changes, but because of them. That new softness in you, it's compassion. That slower pace, it's mindfulness. That deepening of silence in your life, it's wisdom making space to speak. Too often, we cling to the past version of ourselves like a photograph we can't put down. But if we stare too long at that photo, we miss the living, breathing person still here, still worthy, still radiant. Your value was never in how much you could do. It was always in who you were while doing it and who you are now, even when you do less. So let yourself change. Let yourself become. Let yourself release the need to be who you were so you can embrace who you are. Because this chapter, it's not the end. It's the season of blooming in quieter colors, of dancing in smaller circles, of speaking less but saying more. Take a moment now and ask yourself, am I still trying to measure my worth by who I used to be? Because when you stop comparing yourself to your old self, you begin to uncover the quiet brilliance of who you are now. Let the past be a beautiful place you once lived, not a prison you keep returning to. Let's turn the page not because we've forgotten what came before, but because the next part is just beginning. Number 9, let go of the belief that it's too late. One of the quietest lies we tell ourselves as we age is this: it's too late. Too late to start again. Too late to say what we really feel. Too late to repair a relationship. Too late to learn something new. Too late to dream. And it doesn't always sound dramatic. Sometimes it comes as a sigh. I wish I had done that years ago. I don't want to bother anyone now. I'm too old for that kind of change. But here's the truth, whispered in the voice of wisdom. Time doesn't run out on the things that matter most. It's not too late to apologize. It's not too late to forgive. It's not too late to create joy, to seek beauty, to experience something new, even if it's small, even if it looks different than it used to. I once met a man who learned to paint at 82. He said, I realized I spent my whole life providing for others. Now I paint to feed my own soul. Another woman, in her late 70s, called her sister after 20 years of silence. She simply said, I miss you. I think we got it wrong. That one call led to weekly conversations and healing neither of them thought possible. These stories aren't rare. They just don't make headlines. But they are happening quietly, beautifully, in living rooms, gardens, senior centers, and hospital beds. The truth is, as long as you're breathing, your story isn't finished. And more importantly, you don't have to do something big to start again. You don't have to write a book, climb a mountain, or change the world. Sometimes beginning again looks like going for a short walk after weeks indoors, trying a new recipe just for yourself, saying yes to a lunch invite, saying no to something that drains you, writing a letter you never planned to send, sitting quietly and finally allowing yourself to feel the emotions you've been avoiding. The moment you decide that life is still happening for you, not just around you, that's when the shift begins. This belief that we are too old, too far gone, too broken to begin again is one of the heaviest lies we carry, and it robs us of the very thing we crave most in our later years: hope. Hope is not naive. Hope is a form of courage. It's the quiet strength that says I still matter. I can still change. I can still create beauty with what I have left. What if you began to see every morning not as another day behind you, but as a fresh day you've earned? What if this season of life wasn't about winding down, but about waking up to simplicity, to presence, to self-kindness, to the realization that this moment right now is still part of your becoming? Take a gentle pause and ask, what have I told myself is no longer possible, simply because of my age? Because often, what's holding us back isn't our age. It's the belief that age disqualifies us from joy, growth, or new beginnings. But joy doesn't come with an age limit. Neither does growth. Neither does healing. You have not missed your moment. You are standing in it. So let's let go together of the idea that it's too late, and let's turn toward what's still waiting to unfold. When we began this journey together, I asked you a quiet question. What are you still carrying? Now we're here at the end. I ask you another. What might your life feel like if you finally set it down? We've walked through the weight of old roles, heavy silence, unspoken regret, fading identities, and the haunting fear that maybe it's too late. And yet, through all of this, one truth rises. You are still here, still breathing, still changing, still capable of letting go and beginning again. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting who you are. It means honoring who you've become. At 70, 75, 80, or beyond, you are not a faded version of your past. You are a fuller version of your soul. You are the woman who has cried and kept going, the man who has held families together in silence, the one who has loved deeply, lost painfully, and yet still shows up to life with eyes open. That is strength. That is grace. That is beauty, not the kind the world applauds, but the kind that lasts. Maybe some of the things we spoke of today hit a tender nerve. Maybe they reminded you of someone you lost, or someone who became distant. Maybe they mirrored something you've been carrying for far too long. If so, I want you to know you are not alone. The work of healing isn't a one-time decision. It's a gentle process. a return, a soft unraveling. It's okay if you're not ready to throw away all 8 of those things today. Just choose one. One thing to release, one thought to shift, one memory to meet with compassion instead of judgment. And tomorrow, choose one more. Little by little, your life will begin to feel lighter. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You started seeing yourself not as someone reaching the end, but someone still becoming. There's a kind of power in that realization. A quiet courage that doesn't need applause. It just needs truth. So I ask you, dear friend, what part of today's video touched something in you? Which of the 8 things are you most ready to release, or at least begin to loosen your grip on? Please take a moment and share it with me in the comments. I read every single word. When we speak from the heart, we give others permission to do the same. And maybe someone reading your words will find the strength to let go too. If this video gave you something, a thought, a pause, a breath of peace, please consider liking it, sharing it, or subscribing. We are building a community here, not of perfect people, but of people who want to age with intention, with healing, and with heart. And if you found today's message helpful, I invite you to join me in the next video, 5 things joyful elders do every morning that most people never think about. It's not about routines. It's about starting your day with meaning and ending it with peace. And I think it might surprise you in the best way. But before you go, I want to leave you with one last image. Picture yourself sitting in the late afternoon light, a warm cup of tea in your hands, the breeze soft, the air still. You've let go of so much, and now your arms are free to hold what truly matters. Not guilt, not expectation, not old roles or regrets, but presence and joy and the peace of knowing you are still enough, exactly as you are, in this very moment. Let that be your takeaway. Not a checklist of what to discard, but a remembrance of what you deserve to feel: light, loved, and finally, free.